Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of Dare to Age Well Now. My name is Angela Belford, and I'm your host, and I'm joined today by Sarah Scott Weaver. Sarah, would you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, Angela, thank you, first of all, so much for having me. I am a functional medicine nurse practitioner and holistic health advocate. As the CEO of Entourage Health, I deliver concierge level functional medicine care, and I also train nurses in holistic certification. So basically, my mission is to help people and providers experience healthcare that's personalized, it's more root cause focused, and deeply human.
That is fantastic. I think we can all agree that personalized healthcare makes a lot of sense. As we are rolling into this kind of next season of our life, and what I'm hearing from listeners is that while I set out for this to be for those of us in our 40s and 50s and beyond, I'm hearing from some of our even 30 something listeners that are like, hey, I'm learning a lot. And so I am excited to have you here so that you can talk a little bit about metabolic stability and kind of I can guess what that's about, but why don't you just lay that out for us?
Yeah. I think this is something that is really common to overlook. And when we look at that metabolic stability or resilience, we know that blood sugar spikes drive inflammation and aging. Jesse and Shupe talked about this in Glucose Revolution about how steady glucose really supports vitality. And Angela, there was a study in JAMA in 2022 that shows that midlife insulin resistance equals brain loss volume. So you play that out in your 30s, 40s, and 50s of having these blood sugars that are up and down, and then enter into your 70s and 80s with dementia and Alzheimer's risk being much, much higher. So, there are some things that we can really look at as far as blood sugar dysfunction. Even those people without diabetes, that can lead to inflammation, cognitive decline, and accelerated aging. And functional medicine really helps us identify those patterns early and reverse them with a more comprehensive plan that would include food and movement and lifestyle.
Okay, so this is an interesting little, I love the nuance because so often we will see the headline or the social media meme, right? And it's like, oh, sugar is linked to Alzheimer's. And it's like, okay, but we can't give up sugar for the rest of our lives and hope that it turns out. But you're saying we're talking about the stabilization of our blood sugar, which feels so much more manageable. And we can get it's not just preparing us for the future, but like having our blood sugar be stable today is going
Yes,
to help us feel better when we're not
yes.
doing that ups and downs and the crashes and all of that.
Yes, absolutely. And I think really understanding your metabolic health is one of the most important things that you can do. So, Angela, we could be sitting right next to each other, enjoying the exact same ice cream cone. And my blood sugar is going to do something wildly different than your blood sugar. And so, if you get curious about where you're at with your blood sugar, some basic tests that would be covered by insurance would be that fasting insulin. I think is for everyone. Should everyone in their 30s, 40s, and 50s should be getting that test. And what we're looking for, now don't let the normal reference range trick you because those are in the mid 20s, but really what we're looking for metabolic stability is a level less than 7. So if you've got insulin that's in the teens, that's already hinting towards metabolic stability. The other tool that can be really helpful is a continuous glucose monitor. And this, just slap on this on for 2 weeks and living your life, eating the things, having the stress, doing your commute. You're going to figure out really quickly what is dysregulating your blood sugar and what is helping stabilize it. And it's amazing how this is wildly different for different people. Some people can do fine with eating rice or potatoes, and other people, it's a no-go for them. Um, and also stressors and what are tied into that blood sugar regulation so deeply. Yeah.
Well, I love that we've talked about actually we had an episode where we talked about that, and I'm glad that you brought that up, the continuous glucose monitor. And even just doing it for 2 or 3 weeks. So this is not like a forever you have to do this. It's kind of a lot like everything. Like you got to get to know yourself. You got to figure out what works for you. And I think it's interesting when you talk about that versus the like, fasting blood sugar, not to discount that or anything, but I can remember even back when I was like pregnant, so you're at the doctor all the time, and they're like, "Oh, your blood pressure's up." And I'm like, "Well, yeah, because I normally come in at 8 a.m. And now I'm here at 4 p.m. and I've been waiting here for an hour for you guys to get to me. And I have all these work things. And
Yeah.
so I think the idea of just doing that continuous monitor for a few weeks to get to know the stress, you'll see the patterns easier than you will with like one little snapshot that you
Yeah.
can get when you're getting that from the doctor. So I love that as a
Yeah.
strategy.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And then the other thing is, and this was in that message, but what you're saying is we have to get to know ourselves. And so often the fad diets say cut this, don't eat that. We're not supposed to eat this thing or that thing. That's because they've done studies, and in studies they've said it does these things to these people, but we don't know what it's going to do for us. So, is there an element of doing a concierge functional medicine provider that really kind of positions people if they're ready to take charge of their health and really not just be a ride passenger shotgun
Yeah,
on the journey?
yeah, for sure. I think what happens at Entourage is we really pride ourselves in surrounding that client with as many tools as possible. So they have access to electronic medical record that is they can do some deep journaling with that. They can upload their information really easily with that glucose monitor, or if they have something like a Fitbit or an Apple Watch or an Oura Ring, that information can automatically be synced into
Oh,
their chart.
nice.
So
Okay.
giving us that information, and then that deep of information can really help us tailor their program for exactly what is happening to them. And you're right. I mean, we get these sound bites and we feel like that might be the answer. So it reminds me of a client who had decided to try fasting, and she did everything right. Um, she adapted herself. She didn't jump in really quickly. She started with 12-hour days and then went to 16-hour days and then went to 18-hour days. She did some 24 and 48-hour fasts after months of adapting herself. And then we went back and looked at her data and her labs again, and her A1C, which is her average of her blood sugar, went up, her liver enzymes went up, and her insulin levels were up. And that is so confusing and frustrating. So
Yeah.
adding something in like a glucose monitor allowed us to see that she was actually staying elevated in her blood sugar until she ate a protein continuous meal. And what we were able to figure out is that her liver was slow to respond with that insulin response. And so we needed to back her up and do some liver work before she could really be successful in the fasting work. And so complicated cases like that are perfect for functional medicine because you're not going to get that in and out with your doctor. We're really going to take a whole 50 minutes and look through all the data and understand how all of these different things, like our social relationships, what we're eating, how we're sleeping, is impacting that bigger picture. women our age are often struggling with that weight loss puzzle, and that advice of exercise more, eat less doesn't always work.
Yeah. For
And it
those
can
of
be
us
pretty
that have like
shaming.
done all the things,
Yeah, I've done all the
done
things.
all
I do
the
that.
things,
Yeah.
done all the things.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to pull out a couple of things. I'm gonna pull the thread. Number one, the liver. It is the unsung hero, I think. I know we talk
Yeah.
on this podcast, we've talked about gut health kind of a lot, but I really wanted to key in on you said that you had to go and do some liver work. I'm very curious, those of us that grew up and like our grandparents would try and make us eat, liver and onions. Ooh.
Yeah.
Um, but that's not what we're talking about. You are talking about that our liver is our filter. Like, what all
Yes.
does our liver, what all does that impact?
So our liver processes everything you eat, everything you breathe, and everything you absorb. So you think about that average woman is putting makeup on our face. We're putting over 100 chemicals on our skin and into our bloodstream,
Yeah.
right? That's just our morning
Yeah.
routine. That's not even talking about like what's in our water and what's in our air and what's in our food. So our liver detoxifies the hormones and metabolizes fats. It regulates our blood sugar, it stores nutrients, and it filters toxins. And when our liver is sluggish, our whole body feels it. So when we're looking at what that from that functional medicine view, that liver is really central to hormone balance, staying good on our toxin load, keeping our cholesterol in check, keeping our blood sugar in check, and keeping inflammation overall. So we see some early signs with poor liver function that are often missed, and that can be fatigue, especially right after eating, brain fog, bloating, maybe having even some of that heaviness on the right side, skin issues, like why am I getting acne in my 30s and 40s? We often think of taking care of that liver when somebody is starting to have PMS or more estrogen dominant type symptoms, if they're gaining weight easily, or they have a sensitivity. This is a big, big sign of towards chemicals or fragrances. If they can't walk into one of those candle stores without getting a migraine, or having an office
Oh.
mate that has perfume and that sharing that space becomes difficult, that is a early sign of that liver that really needs some support.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so my liver story, I shared a little bit, is that I probably got to be 30 something and just thought I was hypoglycemic and like would have terrible spells of hangriness and then also just be like where I would get dizzy really easy if I didn't eat regularly. And then I don't even remember how, probably my chiropractor was like, why haven't you done a liver cleanse? And I don't even think it was related to all of that. I was not trying to solve it because I just thought that was just the way the world worked. And after I had that liver cleanse, I was able to, I've never had hypoglycemia problems anymore. But I do still have issues with the smells, intense smells. I've
Mm,
had some very horrible, huge arguments with my husband about like if he sprays his cologne in the bathroom. I'm like, no, 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 he has to go outside and spread because I can't smell. And I just am sitting here thinking, oh wait, I haven't done a cleanse in a few years
yeah,
of my liver. It was all braggy about my not having hypoglycemia, but I did not know that was one of the symptoms. That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
Okay,
We
well,
just
I'm
think
gonna have
that's
to dig into that.
normal, right? Or
Right.
power through it. And it's actually our
Yes.
body giving us really important information.
I love that because there's so many things that I've learned on this podcast about that we think there's something wrong with our body, and it's just our body trying to communicate in the only way that it can, right?
Yes.
I think about when we're babies, we're infants, we only have a couple of ways of communicating. Your body in the same thing, it sounds like. There's only a few ways. It can send you pain signals, it can send you sluggishness, all of these
Yeah.
things, and we're not noticing. We think we have a symptom or a problem, and really, it's a message.
Yes.
and we're not decoding the message right,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Ooh, thought of it like
Absolutely.
that's
We're
awesome.
asking our livers to do more than ever before, but we're giving it less support. So when we think
Mm,
about those top stressors like the ultra processed foods and the seed oils, sugar and alcohol intake, we top that on top of all the environmental toxins. We thought that maybe eating fish was a good idea. Now we're finding all the microplastics in everything, pesticides, mold, our pharmaceutical burden with like NSAIDs and statins and PPIs. And then just it's tough for that average working person who is putting in 40 plus hours a week, plus juggling kids, plus managing aging parents to really get those nutrient dense foods in unless they've already established that habit. Like backtracking and rethinking that can feel overwhelming for sure.
yeah. And then I want to go back to one other thing. I pulled the thread of the liver. The other thread
Yeah.
I want to pull is you mentioned the social load or the social aspect of our health. And I don't think that's something that we talk about. So kind of unpack that a little bit for us.
Yeah, so we know from study that was done by a woman named Holt Lundstad, that loneliness triggers stress pathways and inflammation. And it's when you're lonely, it's on par with smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So it's not just
What?
something that is mental, but is actually a physical phenomenon that happens. And we also know that from the studies that Dan Buettner did in Blue Zones, that longevity is rooted in community.
Right?
And along with like the purposeful movement and eating lots of plants, but social belonging is really important. And we know that community is medicine. So as women that are moving through life and trying to just kind of get through, we had early in our lives this built-in social network with going to school or maybe even going to college. And then after college, there's this big scattering. Everybody goes on a different timeline. Some people travel, some people start careers, some people start families. And as our burdens start to mount as far as running kids around, trying to keep up with the career, that social connection outside of the home becomes less and less. And then when the kiddos start to leave the nest, we look around and realize we've just been kind of surviving if we haven't been really conscious about those social connections. So shifting loneliness can be absolutely one of the most powerful things that we can do for ourselves, especially when we're looking at the Surgeon General in 2023 put out an advisory calling loneliness a public health epidemic and linked
Yeah.
it to heart disease, dementia, and early death.
Yeah, when you said that loneliness is equivalent to smoking 15 packs of cigarettes, I was thinking of, they say that sitting is the new is the new smoking, that if
Yes.
we sit too much and if we're not spending enough time standing, that is equivalent to smoking. So the image that flashed in my brain is like if we're sitting for hours at home by ourselves,
Or in a cubicle
lonely,
at work.
and
Yeah.
then being lonely, I'm like, holy cow, you might as well be smoking. At least you would be have a group of people that you could
Yeah.
go sit in the smoking shelter so that you could smoke with the people in the smoking shelter. I'm just that's a throwback to Friends. Remember when Rachel tried to pretend she was a smoker so she could hang out.
Yes.
Anyway, so that's just that I don't know, that's like a little bit mind numbing, and I've not really thought about it. I don't think we've talked about on the podcast of like how important that is, those social connections. It makes sense. Brene Brown says that we are wired for love and belonging, but yet are we noticing how that is impacting our health? And are healthcare providers asking those questions?
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
I think our functional medicine community is recognizing that and asking that of our clients. But I would say from day to day, when you're just accessing the regular healthcare system, that's not something that's really
Right.
a lot of time is spent
Yeah,
evaluating that. And I think it becomes more and more crucial as we age. We get more set in our ways, and it's tougher to get put ourselves out there to make friends.
absolutely. Wow. This has been enlightening and eye-opening, Sarah. I really appreciate you taking time. If somebody is like, okay, I'm intrigued and they want to find you, especially online, where would they go?
I have a website called entouragefm.com. Entourage is ENTOURAGE, F as in Frank, and as in Mary.com. And that's a great place. You can book a free call with me. I'm willing to talk to anyone. I mean, even if you're not in a place financially where functional medicine feels like it is affordable for you, I kind of view these free phone calls as part of my service to my community, and I will help you find some resources to help move your health forward.
I love that so much, and I appreciate it. And I know that when you're frustrated because you've gone from doctor to doctor to doctor, you get to the point where you're like, well, if something might work, then I think hope is a critical thing for us to continue to rekindle.
Yeah, and when you're looking at, functional medicine is for the most part cash pay, but when you're looking at what those copays are with insurance, it's actually not much different than going to a doctor and having a 10-minute visit and having a 50-minute visit with somebody who's trained to look at the whole picture.
Yeah, and you're saying 50, 50, not
Five
15,
zero, five
five
zero. Yeah,
zero. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
amazing. Well, thank you so much for being a resource, Sarah, and for sharing this. Hopefully, as always, people have learned something new and you guys can explore how you can give your liver some support and how you can build community. If you'd like to join our community, join us over on Substack, daretoagewellnow.substack.com. We'd love to continue the conversation with you. And until next time, I hope you dare to age well now.